Okay, so this Browns game versus the Texans, for all intents and purposes, is basically over. And I just wanted to get my thoughts on it. Now, the first thing people are going to want to talk about is the return of Deshaun Watson. How did Deshaun Watson look? And on first notice, he looked rusty. He had an issue throwing low. And it seemed like for whatever reason, the laces were tripping him up on his hand. It seemed like he was not comfortable with the QB wrist thing. Like it just seemed like he was uncomfortable playing football because he hasn't done it in a long time. And he was just trying to get used to being out there. The good news is that it didn't matter. It absolutely did not matter because, hey, the one game where you needed support from offense and special teams, with defense and special teams, you got it because, yes, Deshaun Watson and this offense only got 6 points. But the defense and special teams were good for 21. Donovan Peoples-Jones got a kickoff return for a touchdown. And then I believe there were three. My bad. There's so many, it's hard to remember. There was a not a pick six, a fumble six by Denzel Ward on a fumbled QB sneak. Yes, you heard that correctly. A fumbled QB sneak. Yeah, I know, right? A fumbled QB sneak. The Browns scored off of that, and then on a punt return or something, somebody just tipped the ball up in the air, and Tony Fields caught it and then ran it in. Or no, there was a pick six. My bad. Pick six, fumble six, and then Tony Fields got another fumble recovery on a punt return, and then Donovan Peoples-Jones scored on a punt return. The Texans are terrible. There's not much to glean from this either way, right? If you're looking for an abundance of good, hey, you can wave most of this off as Watson's rusty. He's getting all this stuff. People weren't used to playing with him. All those excuses are going to probably be pretty valid for his first game back in 700 days. We wondered how much the rust would factor in. Some of us, myself included, thought the rust wouldn't be that big of a deal, but other people felt like it was going to be a massive deal. We'll see. But the first game back looked like his first game back. We'll see how he looks next week in Cincinnati. Much different test. And anything good that we've seen from the defense, I don't want to act like the defense did nothing because they did take advantage of the opportunities that were in front of them. But I do want to point out that the Texans are just terrible. And they are so terrible that it's hard to judge whether this is just the defense turned in the corner or the Texans being straight awful. I think it's more or less the Texans are just straight awful, right? That's where my instincts lie. Now, with how Watson played, right, what are the numbers? 12 of 22, 121 yards and an interception. There's going to be a lot of overreaction. There's going to be a lot of people saying things that are probably not going to age the best, right? And I think it's important to remember the range of irrational opinions we hear about the quarterback position during the course of a football season. When it was, and by the way, the score is going to be different because I recorded this late in the fourth quarter, last 2 minutes, so it's 27-14 now. But remember when Jacoby Brissett had a slow first game against Carolina where he didn't play well and everybody was talking about the Browns need to start Josh Dobbs? Remember that? Remember when Jacoby Brissett had a bad game in the middle of the year and then everybody was talking about start Josh Dobbs? And then now we're going to act like Jacoby Brissett never played a bad game, right? That's what we're going to do. And then now if Deshaun doesn't have a great game every time, we're going to talk about start Jacoby Brissett, right? Y'all need to give this shit time, right? I think that's important. This stuff needs time. The good news is that you got abundance of it because you were able to work out a game's worth. And I don't think people understand the value in this, but you were able to work out a game's worth of kinks, what happens, for a lot of things. And if you're going to ask, hey, what are the kinks exactly that they need to work out? Let me give you an example of some of them. If you're on the offense and you're a wide receiver for Deshaun Watson, there are going to be some things that are different with Deshaun Watson, right? Deshaun is a different passer of the football. He throws the ball much harder. His balls become different. He throws the balls at different parts of his drop. He also will throw the ball much later and longer into a drop back than most people. Guys got to get used to that. The wide receivers got to get used to that. Deshaun's got to get used to how this offensive line blocks, what those pockets are routinely going to look like, when he can go, when he can't, when he can throw, when he can't, what's a passing lane, what's not. Just kind of relearn some of these things, and he'll do that. He's had a track record of being able to do that. And that will be in fact for him. And that will be fine ultimately for Deshaun. Like, those are nothing I saw from a negative standpoint with Deshaun Watson was like, oh dear God, he can't fix that. It was just like, okay, yeah, this looks like he hasn't played football in a while and that he needed a game to get back. And this is the perfect game that he needed, where he didn't really have to do anything in order to win it, as the Browns are going to win this game 27-14. So that's fine. You're fine with how this game ended up, the score of it. Like, nothing here said red flag, abort, right? It wasn't like with with Russell Wilson, when he got out there and he looked fine, it was just inaccurate, right? This was like, okay, the type of inaccuracy he was like, oh, okay, he's either spiking it or throwing it perfectly. Like, he's just not comfortable right now playing football. That's fine. He will get comfortable eventually. And I think he'll probably get comfortable, I would hope, by next week. They're going to need him to be comfortable next week because the Bengals aren't going to just hand you the game. But that's the thing with Watson. I wouldn't be too concerned. You're going to hear a lot of hot takes about it. I would ignore them. Time will be the ultimate test with him, right? The fact is that he's under contract for the next 5 seasons. So it don't matter if we figure it out now or next year. He's going to be here. You know what I mean? But the first Watson game does start off with the win. It does seem like the defense came more prepared to play because he's in the game. Like, some of these things do have an effect, right? And the Browns did a better job of just closing this game straight up. He did have some critical runs, like on that last field goal drive. He had a good run that got him back in the field goal range that ended this game early. Well, that pretty much ended the game for them, right? To get that 27th point. So there are some things that people are going to complain about, and whatever. The same people who never wanted him here are going to be the people who are probably going to overreact, and that just is kind of what that is. I wouldn't take too much note because their reasons aren't really football related. It's more about how they feel about him everywhere else, which is fine. But if we're looking for football reasons to be concerned, I wouldn't take those people's word that seriously. But yeah, everything else, like, I didn't see anything that was a massive red flag with him. I didn't see a loss of athleticism or a loss of balance or something like, or vision or something like that. It didn't look like that to me. It just looked like a rusty quarterback. Which is fine. Wonder how long it's going to take for him to get back normal. Maybe it takes him being in like a legit close game for him to focus in and just get back into that zone. We'll see. When it hits, it hits. For Chubb was fine. Only 17 carries. The Browns won the game without Chubb getting to 20 carries. Donovan Peoples-Jones was pretty good as a punt returner. He had a decent day as a receiver, but I felt like he also had a lot of penalties. But he was the leading receiver. Amari Cooper was fine in this game. Offensively, they weren't great. This wasn't a great offensive performance. Now, it is the note, as bad as the Texans are, they actually are top 10 in red zone defense. So some of the Browns' issues in the red zone did make sense. But again, you're bringing in Watson to be better in that area, and you just weren't. So you want to see that improve eventually as he gets more acclimated to playing. And then defensively, like, you played a really good game defensively. The numbers are going to be gaudy on the defensive side. It's just hard for me to take any of it's just hard for me to take any of the positive I saw too much to heart, because I was just, what I really took away from this game wasn't, hey, the Browns defense made some strides, or the Browns offense, watch out. I couldn't really take away anything from the Browns because I was just flabbergasted, shocked at how bad the Texans are. Like, I watched 0-16 football. I watched the 1-15 team, and they were better football teams than what Lovie Smith has down there in Houston. And maybe it's just they're this bad with Kyle Allen, and maybe they're better with Davis Mills, but they are terrible. Like, terrible, awful, trash. Like, it's hard. It's like when Ohio State plays UAB, and Ohio State can look amazing after UAB. But it's UAB at the end of the day. Like, how much am I going to take away positive about Ohio State's victory over University of Alabama Birmingham? That's what I felt like. I felt like they played University of Alabama Birmingham Texans. They're not good at all. And when I say that, I think I'm underselling it. They are terrible. And they played a terrible game. Look, the Browns gave up 3 possessions in the first quarter of this game, and the Texans somehow ended the first half down by 2 points. They got 3 turnovers and only got 5 points out of it. And they only got 5 points because one of the turnovers was a safety. How are they that bad? Like, the Texans are unspeakably bad. But that's really my takeaway from this game. Let me know what y'all think in the comment section down below. Make sure you subscribe.